Hey, Tom.
Marcus Pierce in the house.
That's right. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for including me in the Lucifer panel. I love this show. I loved working with everybody on it. I mean, I was a fan of the show before I got on the show, and so when I had the opportunity to be on it, it was a no-brainer.
Did you have an idea of the character you were going to play? Were you excited?
I was definitely excited. What we did is with Joe and Ildy, who wrote the show, they're showrunners. They slow played the information about my character to me on purpose, because as you know, during the beginning of that season, you don't know who this guy is, and I like that idea where you don't know who somebody's going to be, and so I kind of saw 3 or 4 scripts at a time. For me, the big revelation that my character was Sinnerman, that was like cool. And then later I found out that he was actually Cain from the Bible, and I got to experience that as a revelation just as much as the fans did.
Oh, that sounds a lot of fun. Well, your fans are dying to ask you some questions, so can we jump into that? All right, our first question is from Tiger Lily 248. Hi, Tom. Hope you're well. Did you get to keep any issue from either Smallville or Lucifer?
I'm sorry, I have a horrible answer to that question. No, I'm not a klepto kind of guy. However, now that I have a son and another baby on the way, I wish I would have kept a couple things from both, just so they can see them later. But no, Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor on Smallville, he would take my things and take them home, and he has like a museum or a mausoleum, so to speak, of everything. But no, but going forward, any other projects, I'm going to steal a lot of stuff.
Huh. Was there anything that you wish you would have taken but didn't? Obviously you didn't, but is there anything you wish you would have taken?
I wish I would have taken the police badge that Pierce had. I thought that was cool, and the gun that he used, because we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what kind of gun a guy like that would have who's been around forever, and what his choice of weapon was. There was a lot of discussion about that. So I wish I would have kept it, but then again, they don't let you just take guns off sets.
I can imagine that. All right, the next question is from Rasa. She says, Hi. In Smallville, did anyone ever play a prank on you with the lightweight props and then swap them out for the real thing? Hugs from Latvia.
No, not that I recall someone played it on me, but Greg Beeman, who was one of our showrunners and one of our best directors, his son was about 10 years old, and he visited set one day, and we were in a gymnasium weight room, and the weights in there are all fake. You got these 45-pound plates that go on a bench press machine, and there were like 4 on there, but they're styrofoam. And I went over and I said, come on over, and I couldn't. I'm like, oh, I can't lift this. Can you lift this? And he goes, and he lifted it over his head, and it was really great to see that, in that moment, that 10-year-old was the strongest person in the world.
That's great. Okay, the next question is from Oxan. Hello, Tom.
Hi.
How was it to play Clark Kent again for the Arrow crossover last year? Lots of love from France.
Thank you, France. Love France. It was really fun. I mean, I'd always been hesitant to revisit the character, but the way that they wrote it and what they wrote, I thought really sort of wrapped it up in a sense. And I tried to infuse a little bit of the Jonathan Kent character with the gloves and the way I kind of moved, because I think that's who Clark would have grown up to be a lot like his father. So it was a lot of fun. It was the right way to do it, I think, and it serviced the character that I played for 10 years. It wasn't me showing up on some other show or some version of that character. So it was very nice. And going back to the Kent farm, that was cool because I knew that place better than anybody. It was fun.
Did you find it easy to get back into the character?
I wouldn't say it was easy because he had evolved. He was different. I mean, I love the idea that he had children. Him and Lois were married, but what I really liked, what worked for me, is that John Cryer's Lex Luthor, when he said, "I'm Lex Luthor," it was very easy to say, "No, you're not," because to me, he's not the Lex Luthor that I know. So, like I said, it was so well written that it all flowed from my character's perspective. So, I don't know. I want to say it's easy, but it felt good.
Well, I know we all enjoyed watching that.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is from Jenny Sun 23. What is a place you love going to for vacation?
Wow. Well, these days, my house. But I guess the easy answer would be New Zealand. My wife Jessica and I, we went there before we were married for about a month, and we traveled, and I can't get enough of it. I can't wait to go back.
All right. This next question is Gabby Magam from Brazil. If Kane/Pierce came back from the dead, what would be the first thing he would do?
Well, I love that idea because I think he should come back. And in this world, this Lucifer world, he could. I would love to come back on the show. That's not up to me. It's maybe up to the fans. Wink, wink. But I think I'd like to see him come back and be of some use to Lucifer somehow, because he wasn't useful to Lucifer before. I mean, yeah, there was a little bit of teamwork going on there, but I would like to see Lucifer stuck, and then somehow Kane shows up to help him, or Pierce shows up to help him. I think that would be a fun twist.
That would be fun. Okay, our next question is from Heba152 from Morocco. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Oh, Morocco, sweet. You must. What time is it?
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, enjoy it. Enjoy it. I know this is a Lucifer panel, but on Smallville, it was so busy and it was so chaotic. I think it's only now that I'm looking back and remembering all the good times. And I'm not complaining, but there's a way that you have to grow up in life in general where you have to enjoy what you're going through, even if it's difficult. So, but again, I didn't know that then. So I guess that may enjoy it. I mean, but you can tell people that when they're younger, but they don't know what you're talking about.
That's so true. That's so true. I mean, if we can only tell ourselves that and go, don't forget.
Yeah.
All right. The next question is from Aiden from Turkey. Is there any moment that you'll never forget?
I mean, I hope there's a lot, especially when it comes to my son and, my life. As far as like Lucifer goes,
on the set of Lucifer.
On the set of Lucifer, let's see. I mean, there's so many moments. I don't know which one I wouldn't want to not. I don't want to forget any of them, but okay, so there was a day that we were shooting. It was when, I forget the name, but there was a serial killer. I think it was episode 4 or 5 that I was in or whatever. And it was from my character's past. And that day, you won't see it on camera, but my wife rode her horse 2 hours from where the horse is to set and visited us at lunch with her friend. And that's a moment, I mean, all of a sudden I'm like, hey, my wife's coming to visit. And I told everybody, like, don't not let her in. And by the way, she's coming in on a horse. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And here she comes riding a horse through security, not on the set, but behind the cameras. And there she was. And Tom and Lauren and everybody came over. And that's the first time they met my wife. And they're like, wow, your wife is awesome. She just shows up on a horse. I'm like, that's how I roll. Like, let's go.
She made quite the entrance.
Yeah. So I don't want to forget that. Yeah.
Oh, how could you forget that? So that's amazing. Okay, our next question is from Soulfire Photo. Hello from Brisbane, Australia.
Oh.
Did Kane have a favorite rock in his collection?
So that's a funny question because the scene where Deckard comes to Pierce's house and she comes in the door and the line, I like rocks, or I love rocks, that was my idea, and only because we were there blocking the scene, and before I opened the door, I turned around, there's all these rocks there, because they're supposed to symbolize that he had been around forever, and that's the only thing that also lasts are rocks and whatnot. Now, first I thought, well, shouldn't they all be diamonds? But that's another story. But I opened the door in the rehearsal, and Lauren hadn't seen into the room yet. And so I'd open the door, and she looks at me, and she looked past me, and I could tell that she was like, what are those? So I turned around, and I was like, I like rocks. And so that's where that line came from, and I'm glad they kept that in because it was a lot of fun. But I think that I don't think there was one in particular. In fact, going back to the other question, I should have kept a couple of those. Those would have been good keepsakes. They were all cool. They were all cool.
All right. The next question is from Sophia from Russia. Cool. Who do you like to play more, the bad guys or the good guys?
Oh, well, the bad guys are always fun, but bad guys don't ever think they're bad, if you think about it that way. And I learned that from John Glover, who played Lionel Luthor, and even Michael Rosenbaum. It's like, and you can even go back to like Christopher Walken and things that he's talked about, or like bad people don't think they're bad. But the fun thing about playing a bad guy is their purpose is very clear, like what they're going after. When you play a good guy, a lot of times you're not sure what you're doing. You're just trying to stop other people from what they're doing, if that makes any sense. So I think I would like to play more bad guys in the future for sure, or at least textured or dynamic characters, and that's usually what bad guys are.
Yeah, there's always a purpose and a reason what motivates them to do what they're doing, right or wrong.
Well, that's the problem with bad people, is they don't understand they're bad.
Meanwhile, we're like, you're bad.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right. The next question is from Silk. How often did you have to practice the fight scenes? How long did it take you to prepare for your fight scenes?
The big one I had in the big one I had on Lucifer was with the meta deal. And I think there was about 4 or 5 hours of, previously before we shot that day to practice that. So I guess that's the answer. But I love those days. Like, stunt days are my favorite days because I don't know. I like the physicality of it. I like the energy of it. Those are my most enjoyable days.
Well, on that note, so on the physicality note, the next question is from Allison Colthorpe. Do you have a strenuous workout routine you had for Smallville or Lucifer, and what was it? Oh yeah,
I mean, this is really cutting into my workout. This whole situation. I'm an active guy. When I know something's coming up, there's a way to sort of taper and get into shape for it and be active. But I'm very rarely sitting still anyway. I mean, even if I don't have a project going, I'm hiking or fishing or running around or chasing my son. So it's very hard for me to not be active, and that's a big part of it. And especially for Smallville, I was so young, I didn't have to do much. I would imagine now if, like, for some reason they were like, okay, now you're Thor, I'd be like, okay, well, I need a couple months for that. But you can do it, But yeah, I just try to stay healthy and active.
Well, definitely chasing a 2-year-old will burn a lot of calories. Yeah. All right. Our next question is from Rebecca C123. Hi, Tom. Was there any code names on set when you were working with Tom Ellis to avoid confusion?
Yes, I was. So because it's Tom's show, it's Tom Ellis's show. I mean, he's Lucifer, and it was literally the first day. It was Tom and Tom, and I'm like, listen, I'm Welling, you're Tom, and he was like, okay, cool, and it was agreed upon. But I'm like, this is your show, like, you're not Ellis, and I'm Tom, as I'm a guest on your show. So, yeah, that's a very good question, and we did work that out. I think within about 30 seconds, I was like, I'm Welling, you're Tom, everybody, let's carry on.
That's understandable and fair.
Yeah.